Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I've been waiting for months to say this. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Coffee and Cups podcast. If you accidentally stumbled upon us, please consider hanging around. If you're a dedicated day one fan, let's get this show on the road.
It's time to wake up and check what's brewing. Welcome to Coffee and Cups, your Sunday morning sportscast with your hosts, Chris and Derek.
Before we get started today, just want to give a quick shout out to our partner, Synergy Coffee Chicago. I am proud to be able to introduce a brand new coffee from Synergy that will be coming out September 1st. So this podcast will release September 1st. So if you're hearing it day one, jump on Synergy Coffee and order this up. It's called Kite Runner. I got it right here. What makes this unique is it is a weekly blend by Justin, the creator himself. So it's a different brew, different blend, different roast each week. So it'll be limited quantities. And once it's gone, and the next week you can get something new. So Justin will be sending us some coffee on a weekly basis. I'll be giving you the down low on it, and then you can go in, check it out yourself. So like I said, this is the first one of one for the Kite Runner. The first bean is from Mexico. It is two separate beans, two different roasting styles, which is somewhat unique. Notes of caramel and a bold flavor. And I can tell you, when I got it from Justin yesterday, I thought I was going to be up for 6 weeks straight. But once I tried it, it is pretty strong. Can taste that note of caramel coming through. I think I overbrewed it a little bit. So I will give you guys a better taste test maybe this weekend or next week, but definitely bold flavors coming through, but it is very smooth. And that's what I like a lot about Synergy Coffee. It is all very smooth, easy to drink black. Don't need all that sugar, creamer, everything else goes down nice and easy. All right, Derek, episode 1. What do you got for us, man? How's it been over there in Tecumseh, Michigan?
It's been good. Got back into the golf game finally. So last night was the last week in the league. Didn't do well, fared middle of the pack, but it was a good year. So we'll go back next year and we'll see what we can do.
When you say middle of the pack, what are we talking here? How many teams are there?
I want to say there's like 16 teams. We got
16 teams? Okay, not bad. What were you guys shooting on average?
I mean, it was a scramble handicap, so I mean, we were like 4 or 3 handicap as a team. And I mean, last night we shot like a 37. Most of the time we were +2, not playing crazy good.
Okay. Not too bad. So what are you going to do now that golf is over? Are you going to hit the simulators or what else we got going on?
We played simulator golf a lot last year. I think we'll continue to do it maybe a little bit this year. There's a cool little place just outside of town here on the way to Adrian that we go to. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm sure we'll give golf a break for a while. I've played golf 3 days a week now for 3 months probably.
Whew. I've played twice this year, I think. Golf it really sucks to play golf when you don't have friends here in Illinois. I know you know this well from your time here. And if you're going by yourself or you're going just two of you, you always get paired up with random people. And it's usually either some guy that thinks he's a golf pro and giving you tips, or you get with the lady that just got a set of clubs for her retirement last weekend and doesn't know the tee box from the green. And that's actually a true story. I didn't just make that up. I did get paired by myself with two ladies that got clubs for retirement a week earlier, a couple years back. And that kind of soured me on golfing by myself in Illinois. So don't do it too much these days.
I got pretty lucky and I got pretty good at finding golf tee times when I wouldn't get paired up, but I would tell you that was normally during the actual week. And outside of that, I was traveling to Indiana to avoid it. So I will say, if you live in the city, it is miserable trying to find somewhere to go unless you're willing to drive at least 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's fair. I think there's a couple times when my brother lived here that he would just book the whole foursome. And then him and I would show up and be like, oh, man, yeah, the other two guys, they canceled on us. I'm really sorry. Be like, we'll pay if you want us to pay for the other two spots. And they'd always obviously be like, no, it's okay. You guys can go by yourself. So that was the only way I found to get out of it, was just pretend you got buddies coming and then don't actually have buddies coming.
See, I've always thought about
But
it, always
yeah,
been terrified to get stuck with it. And I'm not trying to
well,
pay for
exactly. And then
$120.
he's like, well, is the extra money, depending on how expensive a course it is that extra money worth the hassle or lack of hassle? I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, sometimes it is. It just depends on who you are. But there's your life hack. If you live in a place that you want to golf by yourself and you can never do it, just pretend you got a whole bunch of friends and then pretend all your friends ditched you for something else.
It's good
Professional. I know. I'm a professional. Yeah,
con artist.
I haven't really doing much of anything this summer, honestly. I've golfed a couple times. I've been taking the summer off of hockey, just getting too angry at hockey and not even hockey. Just taking it, maybe it's too seriously. I don't know. But I find myself stewing and being up late and just being real angry at the rink. So took the summer off, let my body rest up, let my brain rest up, and we'll give it a go in the fall. But it was just a weird spring in my hockey leagues and getting better and trying to, like, go up leagues. I think that's been one thing I've wanted to do since I moved to Chicago is, like, actually get better at hockey since I didn't play a ton growing up. But, yeah, I think I was just getting a little too into it and, yeah, take a bit of a step back.
You're still playing goalie, right?
No, I play goalie, like, twice a year, dude. The first time I played, I kid you not, I literally thought I was dying, and when I got off the ice, I had, like, my chest protector, like, tied down to my pants, and I couldn't get I thought I was, like, suffocating, and I couldn't untie it fast enough and, like, get my chest protector off. I was trying to rip it off the locker room. I'm gasping for air over there. It's gotten a little easier, but dude, hockey goalies, so much respect. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever done in my life.
So what are you playing? What do you play now then when you go and you normally sign up? What do you register as and what are you playing nightly?
I generally just sign up as a forward. I like to play center on most teams, but I'll play wing. I'm not too picky. If I was better, I'd be picky, but I'm not that great. So I think I'm like at a weird spot where I'm like good enough that I'm a contributor on most of the teams I'm on, but I'm not like the guy that's gonna, carry a team. And so you put me with a couple of sandbags, and I'm probably gonna sandbag too. You put me with some decent guys, and I'll put up some stats. I'm kind of in that weird phase where like I feel like I'm getting better, but I'm just I'm not the guy that's gonna carry the team because I'm fat and slow and kind of stupid,
So
frankly.
you're kind of a product of your environment at that point. You're either productive or you're just blending in.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I'm never gonna drag the team down, but I'm never gonna push them over the top either. I'm just gonna be a solid middle contributor, man.
That's
I'm there
fair.
not to get noticed.
So do you guys actually have stats for your leagues that you play? I mean, are they
Yeah, I
trash?
mean, they're trash. I mean, the assists are trash, but they keep track of goals and stuff. I know one of my leagues at 5th, 3rd, like, they keep track of shots on goal too, so they actually keep some goalie stats, but the other leagues don't really do that. They just keep, goals and assists, but it's usually just some 19-year-old kid volunteering or making, $10 per game over there. So not the greatest stats, but they do keep them. And I am on the stat sheet. So
That's
I
so
have an
what's your
official
metric for
profile.
you? What's your metric for you getting better? How are you knowing you're ready for your next league? Are you winning face-offs and are you showing a higher percentage, or are we just winging it and you're just telling yourself like I think I'm ready?
Yeah, it's strictly feel, right? There's like, you either feel like you're in your element or you don't. So like I'm out there, either just getting roasted. And it's like, okay, I can't, this ain't me. Or, you're going out there and you're feeling a part of the flow and stuff. And then you'll have a couple games where, you'll maybe like take over and maybe score 2 or 3 goals. And then, so it's mostly by feel. Obviously, stats generally accompany that feel.
Yeah,
But yeah, for me, it's just, how I'm skating. Our guys blowing past me. Am I skating with them? That sort of thing. Nothing really stat related.
that's fair. That's
And yeah, and I think that's a weird thing. Like, because like what you're doing with golf, right? Is like it's you against yourself the entire time. So I'm curious on your end, like how do obviously your score hopefully going down, and that's how you can judge your progress. But like, how do you see that?
This year is heavily waste. Like, and I say waste as in like wasted strokes. Like my scores have gotten better this year considerably compared to last year, but like what I really focused on for a while was just all the penalty shots or strokes, I mean, I guess you could say, but going through last year I could have like 7 lost balls in a round. Like that's a lot of strokes, and that's just because I wasn't actually
Yeah,
taking time to dial in my driver. Like I was okay with, you know, aiming to go far and gain distance, and if it went out and most of the time I was not nearly close to the fairway, and it was just, hey, I'm okay with playing recovery golf. And then I realized that recovery golf also adds strokes. So this year was a lot of just paying attention, slowing down, and really just trying to dial in and not have to play recovery golf for the first 3 shots every hole.
That's fair. I feel like that's where I'm at too, is like golf's way more fun when you're not doing that. And so mine hasn't been necessarily like improve my score. It's more been, yeah, just golf is way more fun when you're not whacking it out of the trees every 2 holes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most people go through and they focus on like, oh, I got to get better at putting. I got to get better at my short game. For me, it's like I got to keep a ball in play before I get there. I don't necessarily struggle chipping. I don't necessarily like struggle putting. Like I'm in no means good at either of those things, but I have the ability to have massive distance, and I like to see that whether it's going to hurt me or help me. And that's where I got to reel that in
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. The long ball is always beautiful to watch. So that's fair. It's hard not to think that way of just like, hey, let's see how long this thing stays in the air, man.
Yeah,
And it
until it
might
hits the
stay in the
road.
air into the next neighborhood, but
Yeah,
damn, that was pretty. That felt so good.
yeah,
Like,
that's the problem. And then you got to
it's
go
a
up there and
weird
drop
feeling.
it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. But yeah, glad to hear you're getting back and, you know, improving the score. I'm hoping to golf a lot more next year, and I think we'll hopefully get together a bit on that. With that being said, I know you guys are all here for some real sports. As this is our first episode, we'll definitely get to some real sports, but just want to use some of this episode to introduce you guys to us. For those of you that don't follow us on our social media and haven't seen some of our introductions and content, I want to make sure that you guys know who we are as well. So without further ado, I will kick it over to Mr. Derek Martin.
hey, so how's everyone doing? So let's see. I kind of have a little bit of background, I guess, on me. I have played sports pretty much my whole life. Played lacrosse for just over 10 years. Since kind of retiring from college athletics and lacrosse, I watch a lot of football. When I'm not watching football, definitely paying attention a little bit more to the golf scene, and then kind of a little bit more into the automotive, motorsports, things like that. But I know we're not going to cover much of that there. So a lot of my kind of passion and my main conversation points will be heavily kind of Browns focused, a little bit of the AFC North there. It's kind of the area that I watch a little bit more. On the college side of things, we'll hear a little bit more of the Texas, some Florida State, and some of those kind of southern teams in those stronger conferences, just based off of kind of what I watch and what's in my realm there. Um, Outside of that, I've met Chris out in college. We were teammates together, and that's kind of what kicked all this off, and kind of how the podcast came to fruition. So, without going through and just divulging too much, I'll do that in episodes to come. So you'll get to know me a little bit more as we continue the podcast.
How are we feeling about the Florida State performance this weekend? I
Yeah, that was
can't not
bad.
ask.
That was really bad. I have some very
I
very
I
high concerns for that team.
Yeah, well, we'll get to some of that later in the show, but yeah, it was good to have college football back. And fun fact, for some reason, I couldn't stream it the right way on ESPN, so I watched that entire game in Spanish with no subtitles, and I can't speak any Spanish. So
That's
I'm
really
just
weird that
sitting
you.
there, and it's just like you watch the announcer's mouth moving, and it's just I don't understand what's going on because they obviously overdub it with somebody that's not actually announcing the game, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we
But
can we can sidebar it until we get to it, but I got some notes on that because I mean, just looking at what their transfer class looked like, what they left, what they gained, and going through and just looking at their performance, it's scary. But so yeah, I mean, we'll sidebar it. We'll
yeah,
learn a little bit about you, and we'll get into it because yeah, it's interesting for where college football is now.
it's fair. Well, yeah, I guess I'll take it from here. If you want to know my deepest, darkest secret, when I was 18 months old, I drank Drano, so that has a lot to do with sports. Other than that, lifelong sports fan, came from a family of athletes. So my dad played sports growing up. I told people that he could have gone to the NFL, but he had some knee surgeries in high school, which is true. He did have knee surgery in high school, but I don't think he was probably going to the NFL. Mom's a marathon runner, brother's a college athlete. So just kind of grew up around it, always loved it and always loved writing. And so that's kind of something that brought me into the sports media world. I loved watching sports. I loved talking about sports. I love writing about sports, and even spent some time writing for Chicago Sports Nation before I moved here to Chicago, and really enjoyed that. Not just like covering sports and watching sports, but like what it's done for me as a person, and what it can do for other people. I think it's just really cool because sports are so impactful, just outside of the final scores and the teams and whatnot. And so that's something that's always inspired me. I'm not a great technical writer. For anybody that's ever read my writing, grammar and things aren't really my strong suit, but I'm the idea guy. I love to just put stuff out there, talk about it. And so a couple months ago, I'd been thinking about podcasting. I thought any idiot with a microphone and a computer can podcast. And one of two things from that: either that's not true, or I'm a bigger idiot than I thought, because this is way tougher than I thought. So we'll get better at this throughout, but just really excited to be here with you guys. Again, share more about me, share more about Derek, some of our friendships, some of our experiences in college athletics, as well as beer league athletics. And then just, shoot the shit, talk sports, and hopefully bring you guys some entertaining content. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Kind of about the show too. Like I said, we want to bring high quality sports content and a lot of entertainment. I think that's the main thing too. When I thought of this podcast and what we want it to be, it's, that good old fashioned sports center that you woke up every Saturday morning, Sunday morning and wanted to watch, but just an unfiltered, maybe even some might say unhinged at times version of that. But just to really get back to the core of reporting on sports, making it fun, making it funny, enjoying each other's company, bring other people joy. So yeah, that's really what I want to do with the show. Derek, I don't know if you have any different thoughts on where you see the show, but that's kind of, my take on the show.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that we have planned that we definitely haven't obviously touched on, this being the first episode, and I know we haven't covered it here, is just the different people that we have talked to that are open to coming on and kind of sharing not only their journey, some of those people still continuing on into sports, some of those people not necessarily active on the field in those sports, but maybe that is their career from the bench and or from a little bit more of like an office setting, things like that. But just some of the people that we know that can offer some unique perspectives in the different, just kind of be able to hear and learn from those people, just kind of share stories of to their time as athletes and now what are they doing now and how are they still, staying active in the game. So I think that'll be pretty cool. And I think it's pretty exciting. Some of these people I don't know, some of them Chris knows, some of them he does not know that I know. So just very cool that we'll be able to kind of bring that over and just share different perspectives and see how people, go through and alter kind of their life or build their life around the love of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the cool things for me as well is people from different sports, different levels of sports, different functions within the sporting world, both, past, present, and future. But it's really cool just to see what they bring to the table. And I think, some of the people we bring on, you might learn a lot about sports, maybe the recruiting process, the sport itself. You might learn a lot about their business ventures and kind of how they diversified after the game, being a professional athlete, just a lot of unique perspectives. And so we really look forward to bringing that to you guys, again, in a platform that's entertaining and fun. So we'll tease some of those interviews later, but those are some things that you won't want to miss on the podcast going forward. But with that being said, we'll kick it over to our content. We know what you guys are here for. I was going to start with NFL, but I think we teased a little bit. Let's talk about college football, man. Florida State. I want to start it off with one of my favorite stat lines of all time, and probably one of the most concerning stat lines of all time. So DJ Uyungale, I think I pronounced his name right. Probably not. Don't know. But obviously just transferred in, former 5-star from Clemson, went over to Oregon State, now at Florida State. Put up one of the best stat lines I've ever seen. 12 for 14 in the first half against Georgia Tech. The average air yards on his passing attempts in the first half was negative -0.1 yards in the air. And that brings up a lot of concerns. Obviously, you can't be productive with that stat line, but also it kind of brings me to where, what produced that stat line. So I think I have a lot of questions about the play calling there. DJ's skill set, your team's skill set. And so, like, obviously the quick game is a big part of college football now. but that was just alarming to me. So, was it something where, the offense wasn't fully gelling, the coaches, the play calling was a little bit more conservative, just trying to use the quick passing game as an extension of the running game, which again, a lot of teams do? Or is it not the play calling and is DJ just not seeing the field very well? So he's constantly hitting those checkdowns. There's a little bit of both from my perspective, where you saw it was just a quick out, like a quick screen, whether it was a tunnel screen, a screen to the running back. But there were also some times where it felt like he's going through his progression, seeing his reads, and then just dunking it. And not always necessarily a bad thing, but when you have as much talent as DJ and the Florida State offense have, and that's your stat line, and then you end up losing the game. And in no shade to Georgia Tech, I think Georgia Tech is a good team, but I think this result is more of an indictment on Florida State at the moment than it is praise for Georgia Tech.
It's a tough game all the way around. You could tell that they weren't clicking. I could only go through and watch post game. I couldn't watch the actual game just based off of schedules, but they weren't clicking all the way around. It's a crazy disappointment for a team that was playoff bound last year up until, we know the controversial kind of committee decision there, but that's a team that should, in a program that should be in a little bit more of a reload, especially, they brought in, I think, 5 players from Alabama that transferred. And 3 of them, I want to say, were 4-star coming out of Bama. So they have the talent. It's just a matter they got to figure it out and get clicking. I don't know if it's a travel aspect or issue. It's not normal. Is this the first year that college football went over like that? I don't know if they did last year. I know Florida State did not, but very disappointing.
I know Notre Dame
on
has in the
first.
past. They've done the Ireland thing, but I don't think Florida State has.
Yeah, I know Florida State hasn't. I just didn't know if college football was doing that every year because I've never really paid attention if they do that yearly or if it was just a Notre Dame tradition.
Gotcha. Yeah. And like you said, a big transfer portal class. I think that's going to be one of the interesting things. But we've kind of see it change with college basketball where the teams that are winning the national championship not aren't necessarily the teams that have like the one and done freshmen. You're seeing a lot more, we'll call it mature teams, juniors and seniors, maybe a couple transfers, but like upperclassmen transfers winning national championships. And so I'm very curious if we're going to start to see that in college football as well with the transfer portal being such a big thing and NIL. Do we see some of these teams with a lot of underclassmen transfers, the big recruiting classes, maybe struggling out of the gate versus some of these teams that are, hey, maybe I had a top 15 class instead of a top 5, but I'm keeping my players 3, 4, 5 years and, they're getting that experience in the program. I'm really curious to see how that works. If you see a lot of programs dominating the transfer portal and then immediately dominating on the field, or is it going to be those teams that really double down on their players and say, hey, okay, we'll take a couple transfers here where we have holes, but for the most part, we want to develop our players in house. I'm really curious if we start to see that be more successful, but yeah, it'll definitely be interesting.
I think there's a lot more factors now that go into it than what used to, right? With NIL, it's going to change a lot of this because it goes into players' worth. You now have agents involved. You have a lot more things because a lot of these players are worried about the payday now versus the payday later. What's going to help them later on. They're looking at what's going to help them currently now financially rather than, statistics wise, sadly. So it's tough to say. Like a case like this with Florida State where 22 kids, I believe it was 22 kids out, 17 kids in their transfer portal for their off season. It's interesting because with that many personalities to manage, especially with them coming from top programs, kids that left Florida State was actually pretty interesting. Quite a few kids that had left had went to smaller schools. They sent a couple to USC, which is a little bit obviously larger, but some kids to UCF, but it's a lot to manage when you're getting kids from Alabama that feel like, they're coming from a better program on over to Florida State. So obviously you got to manage so you have to manage the personalities and now money's into play with it. So I wouldn't be able to say if football will ever kind of turn into that. I would give you the best bet of being able to mature and see some of that talent and development. College hockey, you see some of these teams that they bring kids in and, they're good year after year, they're reloading. And then you'll get a team that every 5 years will make it onto, the Frozen Four or something like that because those kids have just played together for 4 or 5 years. And then, they have a little bit of lull in the program while they bring in a heavier freshman class. You've seen that a few times, but football is just so different, and it's just going to continue to change now with the monetization of the players.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because I think we've seen that in the past. Ferris State for hockey is a program that comes to mind for that, where, yeah, they don't bring in those top recruiting classes like Boston and Boston College do. But, you get those juniors and seniors that are really good, then you get 1 or 2 freshmen that you hit on, and all of a sudden, yeah, you're a Frozen Four team, and to your point, I think a lot more players contribute at a young age at the college football ranks, so I think it's a little different there, but speaking on NIL, because you brought it up, one cool thing that I did see last weekend was Oklahoma State, and so this is a really cool way for the fans to get involved. Oklahoma State will be putting QR codes on the back of their football helmets this year, which I thought was interesting. But essentially, it'll link to an NIL fund that will help pay the players. So, kind of almost like a publicly traded company now. I'm interested to see if the NCAA, has an opinion on this, if it becomes more widespread. I thought initially that it was like each player had their own QR code and it went to like their own social media and stuff. But it sounds like it just goes to the overall Oklahoma State fund and then it kind of goes from there. So I'll be interested to see what happens there if that's something that gets adopted. But a cool thing for them and Mike Gundy to kind of change the game a little bit and try their hand at getting the upper hand in the recruiting game, frankly, in the NIL game because it's going to get regulated at some point, right? Let's be honest. And so, you strike while the iron's hot. If you, I can't imagine. I'd be very curious. What if they get like 50 million in donations through the QR codes? I don't know. It could be something crazy like that because you think of these fan bases, they're so massive. If people are just giving $5-10, like it adds up in a hurry. So I'm very intrigued to see what Oklahoma State does with that.
I think the idea behind it is great, right? And I say that in the fact that what are they ultimately doing? They're crowdfunding recruiting, right? They're looking to get a crowdfunding account in order to, when there's that next 4 or 5 star recruit that they need, they can go through and they have the money to be able to either work with the company to maybe say, hey, if you can give him, half a million, we'll give him the other half. He can make 1 million in 1 year, or however much they deem they need in order to land that recruit, right? So it is cool. They're bringing the fans along. I mean, obviously the fans don't have any say other than the fact that they're going through and essentially providing some of this money.
And maybe they'll just use the QR code to fund Ollie Gordon's DUIs. I don't know. Maybe not. And if you don't know, that already happened a couple weeks ago. So old news. But if you don't know, I'll tell you a great story. Mike Gundy, fantastic longtime Oklahoma State Cowboy quarterback and coach, showed up to Big 12 Media Day. And his star Heisman hopeful running back, Ollie Gordon, just got a DUI. I know it's shocking. A Georgia player didn't get a DUI, but an Oklahoma State player got a DUI. And so at Big 12 Media Day, they asked Mike Gundy, they're like, hey, Ollie Gordon got this DUI. Like, what's the punishment? What's going on? And Mike Gundy, with his mullet and his spiky hair, is like, when they arrested Ollie, he blew a .09, and I believe the legal limit in Oklahoma is .08. And so, it got doing the math and everything, and not to get into the math, but it's like 2, 3, 4 beers, maybe a shot. And then I thought to myself, I've probably done that thousands of times in my life. And we're all just sitting there looking at the TV like, what did this guy just say? Like, can you imagine Nick Saban go up to the podium after, yeah, we're not going to talk about Henry Ruggs, but, after his player did something, right? Just being like, well, I was thinking to myself, how many times have I got in my car and done that? Like you wouldn't hear that from anybody else. And that's part of the reason why people like Mike Gundy and love Mike Gundy. But it's just like, is that the avenue for that? Is that what we want to be teaching the kids? And then they go in and they say, so, is there going to be punishment for Ali? And he was like, at the moment, I think it was just a poor decision. But if there is any punishment, I think we'll just make him run the ball like 50 times our first game. And it's like, gotcha. So you're going to take your Heisman running back, your best player, and you're just going to give him the ball more so you can win by more in the first game. Like, bravo, Mike Gundy. One hell of a punishment. Appreciate you, buddy. Like that just, it was mind blowing. Great entertainment, but just absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, you can tell he's definitely tenured there, and the school hasn't stepped in because of that tenure, and they're okay with it because that's a wild statement to make. I'm tr- I'm trying to think whose interview that I saw literally this morning. He followed Derrick Henry to Alabama after last name Jacobs.
Josh
Alabama, do you
Jacobs.
remember? Yes, so Josh Jacobs. He had a game his senior year where he carried the ball 57 times. Senior year in high school.
Ooh.
He was talking about that. And so Mike Gundy going through and doing that, I mean, it's not uncommon. You're doing it. I mean, obviously we're talking Division One versus, him playing quarterback at his high school, which he was just running through kids. But to just say you're going to make anybody go run the ball 50 times, I mean, he might be sitting out next week or he's not going to be practicing. That's for sure.
Yeah. No.
That's
I
a
did on the NIL note, I did hear another thing, and I'll look this up while we're going through, but I did hear that college football or college sports in general, they've kind of approved almost a salary cap structure, which makes sense, to allow the players to be paid, but also have some structure there and not allow these schools that make 150, $200 million a year to, have that massive advantage. Obviously, they'll still have an advantage, but what I'm curious is if that takes out the crowdfunding aspect and like all the NIL collectives, or if those will still be kind of in conjunction with, but like the school can only be officially a part of the salary cap end of it, essentially.
So I think it's interesting that you say that because I mean, going through and looking at so the Browns for the second year in a row have restructured Deshaun Watson, right? They obviously gave the largest guaranteed contract to him in 22, I think was when they signed that with him officially. And when you go through and you look at restructuring, right? Like they're restructuring and they're extending now into 2027, I want to say, pushing out some payments there in order to open up cap not only for now, but cap carries over. So that's kind of where I'm getting with this is when these players that are not contracted to be in college as long as some of these pros and you look at salary caps, how are you going to necessarily kind of cap that or things like that? I mean, I guess all money's guaranteed, but if that player chooses to leave, I mean that money is now gone, right? It's a year-to-year guarantee. And then it kind of goes into the fact of at what point, and this is just kind of me walking through I guess the question and the thought process is at what point is them marketing companies technically NIL versus them just having endorsements now that they can be paid, right? I mean, who's to say that they're just not going to sign on and be say a Boeing rep and make $1 million because they're advertising planes when really the school doesn't pay them anything, but it's only because so and so was an alum for that school, right? I mean, where's that fine line in there?
Yeah. And so I did just look it up. It is $22 million, but that's across the entire athletic program. So not just a footballer, basketball, whatever. That will be for the entire athletic department.
Yeah,
Obviously,
see,
it's gonna be how do we
go look up,
circumvent that? Because again, there's gonna
right.
be there's gonna be people, and so I think that's my curiosity is like how much are they gonna crack down on the universities for the very convenient alums that own companies that can sponsor. So I think it'll be interesting to
Yes, I
see
mean,
where that goes.
if you look at athletic departments, right? I mean, go look at what Ewers and what Arch are making this year alone, and that's two players of all of Texas athletics, right? We're not
Yeah.
talking basketball team. We're not. I mean, you go through and you look at that. I mean, they got to be what at least together 3 million,
Oh, easy.
right?
Yours
And
is
that's what I'm
raking
saying.
in.
So
He's with Roback. He's with Dr. Pepper now. He has a private jet company that sponsors him.
why I
I mean,
used the
he's
Boeing
that
example because
dude's.
I knew he was working with it. But that's what I'm saying. Like, how can you go through and say
Yeah.
like 22 million and you look at two guys out of how many kids are on a football team? And I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you got to think those linemen, they're probably getting at least 50,000 at minimum, That football team alone is going to take up like maybe 8 million.
Yeah, well, and that's gonna be the curious thing too, because you also have a large discrepancy in Division One, and I didn't realize this. You have schools like Stanford that have like 37 varsity sports, and then you have other schools that are more specialized and maybe only have 15 to 20 sports to divvy that between. One cool thing that is coming this year as well, though, is the NCAA did go through and revamp scholarships. So football will go from 85 to 105 scholarships. Another sport that heavily invested in lacrosse. So something really cool there is men's lacrosse and women's lacrosse are going from 12 scholarships to 48. In most of the sports, got at least a 20 to 30% increase in scholarships. So I think really cool and a big win for student athletes. We're going to have a lot more student athletes that are going to school, getting their schooling paid for and doing something they love. And then obviously having these earnings potentials on top of that. So it'll be really cool to see how it breaks down. Obviously, Somebody's going to take advantage of it. Somebody's going to make it weird for everybody. But I think college football and college athletics in general are in a great spot. The NCAA is a whole other story. I don't think the NCAA is in a good spot. I think the NCAA is quickly losing their power and their leverage, and so they're trying to do anything they can to essentially not get overthrown by the big schools and the big networks. And so I think that'll be an interesting thing to follow as well, is how does the NCAA, keep a rein on this, but also try to like play a little bit hands off because they're clinging to the last bit of power that they have. Because I know there's a lot of people that just want to get rid of the NCAA in general, and a lot of people talking that this realignment of conferences might be part of that, and there might be some more realignment to essentially like two superpower conferences, and then it just turns into like its own league. The NCAA is no longer a part of it, so it's just crazy. I don't even there's so much going on in college athletics right now that I don't think there's enough time in a day to talk about it. But some really cool things, some interesting things, some nerve-wracking things. I don't know, just a lot going on.
See, that was going to be my question, is as they continue to grow scholarships and various things like that, I mean, the number one question always is, well, where's the money coming from, right? But now that these kids can actually be invested in, I guess that's the term best that describes it, whether it's a company, whether it's a school or things like that, right? I mean, I think what you're seeing is you're seeing a whole nother wave of people being reinvested in their alma maters, right? I mean, people that, whether they're doing it monetary wise or whether they're seeing more success now at their school, I think that there's gonna just continue to be more money dumped into these schools. And I don't know how that's gonna play with the NCAA, but it kind of, I was just thinking as you were saying that as to, where's that money coming from? But you just look at a way to, how do you get people to connect, right? You got to get them invested into it. And obviously through success is going to be the best way to do it. So I don't know. It'll be pretty cool. I've always personally liked college sports a little bit more than pro sports. I think they always play for something a little more. Now, probably not the case with the NAL, because some of these guys are, unfortunately, they're going to make more money in college than they'll probably make post college, whether that means pros, whether that means, things like that. I mean, obviously there's work fields out there, but playing this sport, most of them will probably make the most money here than they will maybe past, but who knows? So I don't know. Definitely an interesting thing. I would hate to be a college coach right now. I would not want to be in any form level of that at all and have to deal with what they have to deal with, just some of the entitlement. I think it's a little bit wild for what some of these kids want. I mean, Saban got out at a good time.
I was gonna say, well, and I think he even said that in some interviews afterwards, that it was just, he had guys coming up to him the day after the Michigan game and asking like for guaranteed playing time or guaranteed money next year. And he's like, dude, we just lost in the semifinals last night. Let's soak that in and get better and figure out what we got to do going forward. And guys are just thinking about the bag and hitting the transfer portal. So definitely interesting. One thing to keep in your head. I know we're going to talk about NFL in a little bit, so I don't want to get there too quick. I know there was some talk about kind of being able to buy stock in athletes, specifically in the NFL. I think you showed
Yeah.
me that. So
Yep.
keep that in your brain for later, because I'm curious on that one. But yeah, week one coming up for college football, going to be an exciting year, a massive year for college football, and a big first weekend, honestly. So I know we got Colorado and North Dakota State playing as we record this on Thursday night. Do you have that score right now, Derek?
Yeah, it's 20-17.
I
Colorado's in the red zone. They're about, I think they're on like the 4-yard line right now.
gotcha. Kind of rooting for North Dakota State. Don't want to root against Colorado, but Deion's making it hard at times, so we'll see. But yeah, big game. The noon slot on Saturday, we got Clemson and Georgia, with Georgia favored by just over 13 points. So a banger to start off. We'll see if Clemson's legit or not. Right after that, we have Miami and Florida. Interesting one here is it's a lot closer spread than I thought. So I think Miami's a much better team, but they're only favored by 2.5 points right now. I think that speaks to playing at Florida, being a rivalry game. That kind of stuff goes out the window. So that's the 2:30 game. And then we have a great nightcap at 7:30. We have Notre Dame at Texas A&M. Another weird one, Notre Dame number 7, Texas A&M is 20th, but Texas A&M is favored by 3 points. So I know Kyle Field's a really tough place to play, but as much as it pains me to say, I think I take Notre Dame in this one. I think that's one where you can win some easy money if you're a betting man. looking elsewhere, obviously got Texas and Colorado State at 2:30 p.m. as well. I think that's gonna be a really good game. I don't think Colorado State's got a ton for Texas, but I think it'll be a fun game with that air raid system. I know you've heard their coach Jay Norvell talk about some of the big offers that his quarterback and top receivers have received to transfer, and they really have been bought into the Colorado State program, which is cool to see. So I think they'll have a little more pushback than people think, but I still think Texas walks away there. Other than that, not a ton of big games on. We got those big ones right off the bat. But, good to see everybody back. We got Ohio State playing at 3:30 p.m. We have Oregon playing at 7:30 p.m. So a lot of the big guys coming out. So we'll get to see what everybody has to offer in this new era of college football. Anything in particular you're going to be watching this weekend?
Yeah, Clemson and Georgia. I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, we know Georgia's still on the top of the mountaintop. They're still up there. Clemson had a rough year last year for Clemson standards, so I think they're going to come out this year for blood. I'm very intrigued into that game. I would call I would put it on upset alert. I think they're going to come out and they're going to come out swinging and they're going to hit hard. They have
Okay.
a strong quarterback coming back, so I'm open
Yeah.
to it.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. I know this show is going to come out after the game happens, so you'll get to see right away if Derek is painfully wrong or not. But I don't agree on the upset part. I think Georgia's going to handle their business, but I do think it's been a tough couple of years for Clemson. I don't think Dabo Sweeney lets that continue. Cade Klubnik, a big time recruit coming out of school 2 years ago, didn't start his freshman season for the most part, started last year and had some struggles. And then this year coming back, I feel like he'll have full command of the offense. My big concern, and I know they'll replace the physical aspect, but Will Shipley has been a massive presence for Clemson on and off the field the last couple of years in that backfield. I'll be curious to see kind of how they backfill his again presence on the field, off the field, leadership, and production overall. So I think it'll be a close one. I don't think Georgia covers that 13.5 point spread, but I think it's two scores. I'll give them by 10 for Georgia.
That's fair. I don't know. I'm not going to give you a score. I'm anticipating it to be close. Clemson by far will not run away with it. But I don't know. I mean, we know Georgia's going to come out hot. Georgia doesn't really ever have any lulls. I mean, and they haven't for years. But Clemson's going to come out for some vengeance. They lost some games they should have won last year.
So Derek's got your upset alert there. I think my upset alert for the week, and it's going on right now, North Dakota State. But since that's kind of cheating at this point, I'll go with
No,
Miami. I
yeah,
think Miami's a much better team. And I also have Miami in my college football playoff. So I don't want them to lose, but Florida's a better team than people think. They went 5-7 last year, but you look at their losses. They beat almost everybody that they should beat, with the exception of Arkansas. They lost in overtime. But you look at most of their losses, right? They lost, I think, 5 out of their 7 losses were to like top 10, top 15 teams. So they come back, though, with the hardest schedule in the country by far. No matter where you look at, they have the hardest schedule in the country. And so I think it just doesn't bode well for them. I think they're probably going to have a new coach come next year. While I think it's been a failed experiment, I think the cards are just stacked against them this year. I think they could pull off this upset, though. So I'll put them on upset alert. I would say Notre Dame, but I think Notre Dame pulls it off. And I also don't think it would be that big of an upset. Maybe it would. I don't know. I've seen Texas A&M ranked as high as 12th and 13th in some polls. They're 20th in the coaches poll. So, you know, upset, not upset. I really don't know. Another one that I want to look at this weekend, it's a noon game as well, so I'll be paying more attention, is Penn State against West Virginia. Penn State, I have in my college football playoff. I think they're going to win it, but there's been a lot of talk about West Virginia's quarterback, Garrett Green, a lot of it from his own coach, for maybe the lack of respect that he's getting right now. So that'll be one I'm interested as well. But yeah, a lot of fantastic games this weekend for being week one, and it's only up from here. So I'm excited for it.
West
Anything else
Virginia
you got on the
is
college football landscape before? Oh, go ahead.
West Virginia is on West Virginia's bandwagon. I say that in the fact that they closed, I do believe tomorrow. School's closed. It's canceled for tomorrow. Pat McAfee's coming in town and they're out. So they're getting all those kids on board. They're in Morgantown. It's gonna be going, dude. It's gonna be a riot.
All
So
right.
we'll see. There's a lot of hype around that game. So I'm sure I'll try and watch that too. But yeah, I haven't really heard a whole bunch about it, but I do know that they're pushing those kids into that game and they're closing the school.
All right. I didn't, yeah, I just now saw that was at West Virginia. So that'll be a good one. I know
Yeah.
there's a big West Virginia and Pennsylvania thing. Obviously, West Virginia and Pittsburgh. I believe it was the reintroduction of a rivalry. I think they took some time off last year, and it was, I mean, it was nasty. Like, you obviously see the passion with the players, but then watching some of the people in the crowd and some of the people making social media content there, I mean,
hmm
just some pure hatred there, which always makes sports more fun. So we'll see if they bring that same animosity to Penn State. It sounds like they're probably planning on it, so that'll be good. But anything else on the college football landscape before we push over to the NFL?
No, nothing crazy right now. I mean, we got 24-20 North Dakota State, which is looking great for the parlay, so we'll be good there.
Oh, what's your parlay? What do you got on the books?
I got a 5 leg going today. Let me see what
Okay.
I did have to go through and oh god, let's pull it up because I got some futures, but we got a 5 leg for the week. Let's see. We have Colorado pulling this one off. I know I said Clemson earlier, but I do have Georgia in the parlay there.
Oh
I
man,
have
no, he
I
doesn't. He
have
doesn't have the cojones
no
to put it
no
into fruition.
no, not monetary wise. And then I do have Alabama, I do have Michigan coming through, and for the fifth one, I do have Notre Dame. So Notre Dame was a plus 125, so I took that over Texas A&M. So we'll see.
All right, I like it. Well, college football season, we got it going. We got a great game here. We got great games this weekend. NFL is not far behind. So we just wrapped up a great preseason, some exciting things from some young players, some old players, and everything in between. What's your take on the preseason there?
Oh my gosh. Preseason was rough. I mean, and I say that 100% just looking from the AFC North side of things. Statistically, normally a pretty strong conference. I mean, last year, 3 of the 4 teams making the actual playoffs, at least the wild card rounds in there. But for the AFC North Conference as a whole to go 1-11, that's tough. I mean, we had one win coming out of the Ravens. Everybody else going 0-3. So that it's a little interesting. I mean, on the more positive side of things, total NFL, if you will, Adrian Martinez leading the Jets to 3-0 in the preseason. A team that obviously struggled
When you
last year.
say Adrian
Aaron Rodgers went out.
Martinez, you're talking like UFL Adrian Martinez, like he was just playing in the UFL like a month ago.
I
Like
will
the
have
kid from I mean, great story. I liked Adrian Martinez in college. I think he went to Nebraska and then he went to Kansas State, I wanna say.
he was a
Um,
Kansas State boy,
but that'd be
yes, but
really cool.
I didn't see his
Did he make the
UFL
53-man roster?
coming this year. Yeah, he's in. He's there. I do believe he is their backup. From what I was looking at on there, let me pull this up because yeah, my guy, I didn't see anything about the UFL on there. Now going through and looking at his time, yeah, he's on there.
Yeah. He was the UFL MVP this year.
Nope, he's off their roster now. He's on. Wow, it's Tyrod Taylor. They kept Tyrod, so he's
They got
gone.
Tyrod.
Yeah, they had
Well,
Tyrod
dang,
though
that
when
is
he
a
was
cool story.
playing in the preseason. They had Tyrod, but they still played Adrian.
Interesting. I think that's
Yeah,
a cool story, and I think it'll be I hope the UFL is successful, not just for fans of football, but for stories like this. I think we've seen it more on special teams. There's been a couple of like kick returners and whatnot that have made careers in the NFL. I can't think of the guy's name last year. He plays for the Cowboys. Somebody get me his name. I don't know what his name is, but he had like 4 or 5 kick and punt return touchdowns last year in the UFL or XFL or whatever it was at that time because the damn
okay.
league gets bought and sold every year at this point. But yeah, I think some really cool things coming out of that. Former Texas Longhorn Charles Omenihu cut his teeth in the spring leagues, and I believe I can't say he was a part of both, but I believe he might be a back-to-back Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, so definitely some good talent that comes out of there. It just tells you, how many great football players there are on the planet, and it's cool to see some of that translate. So
Yeah. So he's
any
They bumped
surprise?
him.
Oh,
Yeah, so Adrian Martinez, just looking into it, they moved him down to practice squad. He was I don't know why Tyrod didn't take any snaps in the preseason, but they rode the coattail of Adrian Martinez. So I just thought it was a pretty interesting thing. Obviously, Jordan Travis is who they drafted and who they're waiting for, but we'll see. It was just kind of neat to see that they could go 3-0 there with an Adrian Martinez.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that is a cool one. Anything else you see in the preseason that surprised you or didn't surprise you besides Daniel Jones just being not good at football? And then Zach Wilson being decent at football, kind
That
of for a
that's
little
that
bit.
surprises me. As far as the not surprised, I'll start with that. Um, and then I'll kind of go into the surprise a little bit. So I'm not surprised with Tampa Bay. I think they're going to come out and they're going to be strong this year. I think, and I'm heavily watching Baker. Big Baker guy, big Baker fan there, but not really surprised with where they were at. Um, Pretty surprised with Atlanta. I know that they don't have depth, but I do think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to be definitely in the top half of their division there. So we'll see, but going 0-3, I do think that they'll put a little bit more together now that they got Kirk in there. They got Bijan behind him. So um, I was a little surprised to see their offseason, their preseason, I should say.
Okay, it's fair. Yeah, one that I was kind of surprised by, and I shouldn't be, Trey Lance. I don't know if you saw his last game. I think he
He,
made the roster. I don't know how. I mean, the Cowboys essentially got him for nothing, but I believe the stat line something like 33 for 49, 354 yards. And Derek's over there saying, "Damn, they don't need to pay Dak Prescott now." And then I'm going to tell you that he threw 5 interceptions and 2 fumbles. And that was not his entire preseason. That was one game. That was preseason game 3. But I think he made the roster still. They got Cooper Rush, who everybody loves. Shout out to Cooper Rush, Michigan kid from Lansing, has had a really long and great career with the Dallas Cowboys. Uh, Obviously, there's a lot of talk that Dak Prescott is not going to be a Dallas Cowboy next year, especially after paying CeeDee Lamb. It's essentially coming down to we can pay Micah Parsons or we can pay Dak Prescott. Mike is younger. He's an edge rusher. And Dallas feels like maybe they can get somebody else. So I don't know. Dallas is in a weird spot, and nothing gives me more pleasure in the NFL than the Dallas Cowboys floundering. But what you got?
so I'm happy you brought up Dallas. So actually,
Uh-oh.
looking at Trey, right? I think he threw, if my memory serves me right, he was 663 yards, which is number one for preseason in the NFL. Which is, hey, cool, fine, whatever. A lot of teams bring in and out players. You see 3, 4 quarterbacks. Stat line really doesn't mean a whole lot there.
Yeah.
Just exchanging players for minutes right now. I think it was 2 touchdowns, five picks, right? So
Yep.
the quarterback that was second in the NFL also had the same pick to touchdown ratio, 2 for 5. So a lot of attempts that were going out, but not a lot of success that you're seeing out of some of these guys. So they're throwing for a lot of yards, but they're not executing very well. But when I go into looking at next year, kind of the hot topic going around right now is who's Jerry going to bring in? And I say bring in as in the fact of, does Dion leave Colorado and go to the Cowboys? We know, I mean, and we can even look at
Oh,
Trey,
you think
right? I
he's going to
mean,
go there with his kid?
hey, who knows? I mean, we go through and we look at, are they bringing Dak? We know Jerry World, he's all about butts in the seats, right? We look at how did Trey make the roster. Well, Trey performed. He's sitting there top of the preseason stats list right there. I mean, he's looking all right in Jerry's book. He's doing some things right. Obviously, you're going to have a little bit of errors when you're doing that. I mean, Dak's struggled, so that's a easy way to kind of get Dak out of there. Is let's get rid of the coach. Let's bring in another coach, and we'll figure out with the organization who we think's best going to lead with that coach. Not saying it's going to be a father-son duo, but I'm saying that I could definitely see Dion with the hype that he's gotten around Colorado, bringing some hype to Dallas, and old Jerry just loving that bad boy.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. I'm going to give the air horn another blow. Derek Martin just announced on episode 1 of Coffee and Cups podcast, Deion Sanders and Shadur Sanders and maybe even Travis Hunter are coming to Jerry World in Dallas, Texas. So
I don't think
buckle
you're
up,
getting all
folks.
three. I think
Amen.
if you're going to get three, I don't think that you're going to get Travis Hunter. I think we're going to see this probably the switch over from the decade, and I think Bronny James is going to be slot.
Ronnie James is going to be holy
When he
shit.
gets cut in LA, he's going to come over to work for Jerry World running slot.
All right. Yeah, that's one of the hotter takes I've seen. I don't know if we even need to go to hot takes for that one. Yeah, so looking at the free agent class next year, I mean, you're kind of right. Not a ton out there. So, there were two QBs, two young QBs in Tua and Jordan Love, but they both just got locked up long term. Jared Goff, I believe there's an option next year. I don't see him leaving Detroit. He's in too good of a situation. They're up and coming, and then Dak, obviously. So, yeah, I think you have to draft a first round quarterback, or you got to sign on to Dak Prescott, because I don't think Jerry Jones is a patient man. I don't think he's going to sit here and be like, okay, I'm just going to twiddle my thumbs for 2 or 3 years with no quarterback. Now, he twiddled his thumbs in free agency, but we all know why now. He has 3 players with contracts coming up. They're going to be 3 of the top 15 or 20 paid players in the NFL. And so wasn't really a lot of money to go around, frankly. So yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, but he twiddled his thumbs with Dak. I mean, have we really ever said Dak was a successful quarterback?
Yes.
In what way?
Statistically successful, not winning successful. But
Right.
I also don't think
So
it's
individual.
Dak's fault. I don't think.
I mean, I'll be honest. He's never had the weapons Romo had, ever.
Know about that. I mean, he has the best weapon individually in CD Lamb, but I mean, yeah, he doesn't have his Jason Witten.
Right.
Zeke was kind of at his prime with Dak Prescott, but they've kind of bounced around there. So
Current NFL right now, I mean, you go through and you look at top 3 quarterbacks. Every single one of
Mhm.
them has a strong tight end. Someone they can just dump to, avoid contact, get a pickup, small minimum gain pickup. He doesn't have that.
Yeah. And I'm not saying Dak Prescott's top 3. You look at Atlanta. If you say, hey, I could have Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott, you're taking Dak. If I go to San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy or Dak, it's Dak. I go
You
to
think
Miami.
the 49ers are better with Dak? Dak and get rid. Really?
Yes.
That's crazy.
You ask Mike McDaniels if you'd rather have Tua or Dak on the Dolphins. It's Dak. And again, these are not like top 5 guys, right? But if you look at like the quarterbacks that are decent statistically, but not like winning Super Bowls yet, I think you take Dak. Like, even not long run, but like if you say right now, Jacksonville, I know everyone loves Trevor Lawrence, and I think Trevor Lawrence is really good as well, but I'm taking Dak Prescott.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would too. I would sell Trevor Lawrence.
yeah,
I
so
mean, buy
it's
or
not that I
sell,
think.
sell. I wouldn't double down on him.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's one of those weird situations where he's a really good quarterback, but obviously he hasn't won yet, and so we're gonna, talk about him not winning. But I think it's a double-edged sword talking about, has this guy won yet or not? And obviously, there's a lot of stock in winning because that's what sports is about. But I don't know. I'm not a Dak lover, but I think Dak is a pretty damn good quarterback at the end of the day.
I just look at where they were to where they are now. And I mean, they've settled into mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, they're a perpetual, you know, 9-7 to 12-5 team. I know there's 17 games now, so my math wasn't good there. But, they're a team that gets into the playoffs. They get what Jerry wants. They sell tickets. They get a playoff game or two, so they get to sell more tickets, and then they don't win anything. And I mean, it's a fun business to be in when you're always pretty good and you're making money. That I believe they're either the first or second most valuable franchise in sports, or at least American sports. I know some of the soccer clubs overseas are worth quite a bit, but it's a cash cow for Jerry Jones. And yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do, because they don't have a ton of options, so they're going to have to get creative. And Jerry Jones is a lot of things. I don't know if creative is one of those describing words I would use for him.
You think it's the best of both worlds? Jerry's happy with a couple playoff games, and the players are happy that they don't go far in the playoffs because that's when minimum paycheck money comes in.
I can't speak on it from that end, but I think Jerry's in a pretty he's in a pretty all right spot. He doesn't mind. He wants to win a Super Bowl. Everyone wants to win a Super Bowl, but I don't think Jerry wants it bad enough.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You think it's a great compromise? I mean, these boys know, hey, we got to get 1 to 2 playoff games in this year. Because I mean, when they hit the playoffs, other than hitting the Super Bowl and conference championships, I mean, they're making minimum money at that point. They're not making their normal game check because
I'd like to
it's
think these
plus.
guys are high enough level competitive athletes that they just want it regardless, but I'm sure there's some of that.
I would agree with you, but the problem is, especially as we look at college and things like that, these players are coming in with money. The world's a business, you know. They know they can do that for
Yeah.
another 2 years versus, going to the playoffs getting beat up. So, I don't know. I would imagine they are, but, I mean, you gotta think, I mean, money comes into play at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of money, talk to me about this essentially buying into players. So I don't know too much about it, but
Yeah,
fill me in here, boss.
so I don't even remember when I saw this and when I first brought it up, but it's a Broncos. I want to say he's a defensive lineman, possibly. Byron Browning was that first started this, and basically, so what it is, fans can register on a platform and they can buy stock in the athletes in a special, or like a certain athlete, I guess you could say. And let's see, where is it at in this article here?
Is this like an experimental thing? Like, are there
Yeah,
a bunch of athletes signed up, or is it
no,
essentially
I
just
think
him
he's
and maybe
one
a
of the
couple
only
others?
one.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's a linebacker right now for the Broncos. It's cool to think to figure out you have your own stock. Browning told the Associated Press.
I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's like NFTs, but better.
Yeah, but NFTs flopped.
Did they? Yeah,
Oh
because
yeah,
NFTs suck. They're stupid. I saw a ridiculous NFT today, but we won't talk about it on here because
Yeah, this is a terrible article to try and skip through because I got too many pop-ups coming through. But from what I remember in this article, I mean about the whole thing is they're selling shares for $10 and then you get a percentage. Like, so right here, so Browning, who will receive 80% of the proceeds from his IPO, fits Vestable's profile as an up or as an upcoming player with a massive upside potential. That doesn't tell me anything here. Because I want to say what it is out of how much money he's making in his contract. They're setting money aside and then people can buy in for like $10. And then yeah, here's what it is. So the company, or I guess the platform that you can buy into, is entitled to 1% of Browning's on-field income, which will be distributed to shareholders for the remainder of the playing career. So you buy in
gotcha.
for like $10 and then you guys get 1%. So obviously the more that he continues to go. Now, how many shares that they're selling, I'm not sure. I mean, it's something definitely we could look up and could dig
Gotcha,
into
because
a
that's
little
what I
bit
was
more,
wondering if
but
the share price, if it's like a typical stock where it's based on, how much they're buying and selling, is this, are we buying high on this player, are we buying low? But it,
right.
it sounds like there's a set number of shares. And then, yeah, you just buy in and once they're gone, and then you hope that player just takes off, which I think is a really cool thing.
So he's going to make up to 100,000 shares being sold at 10,000 and it looks like his last contract was 3.1 million.
Okay.
So you get
Interesting.
1%. The 1% obviously of that 3.1 now is distributed into hopefully 100,000 and hopefully 100,000 people have gone into buying into that.
That's pretty
So
cool. They're
it
10
is
bucks a piece, you said?
$10 a piece, yeah.
I wonder if there's any left. I might have to go buy one just for fun.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought process.
Could you
The
imagine if this was available 20 some years ago and, I bought 100 stocks of Tom Brady at 10 bucks
Yep.
coming out of the pick 199.
See, the
It's
weird
like
thing,
the Google story.
both times I've looked this up, like right now I'm on like Channel 9 News, which is like some Denver like news company. Is there's not a whole lot on it. Like you got
Okay.
to really dig into it, so it's definitely weird. USA Today has an article on it, but other than that, like there's two articles and everything else is just is way off. So it's not a heavily covered story, which tells me it probably is not gaining the traction. I'm
Hmm.
more kind of interested in how the what the NFL's take is on that. I know they control a lot of what brands and things like that players can work with, wear, things like that. So that's a little bit interesting, but I'm sure that's already been cleared. Kicking it. Oh, what did you just say? Because I wanted to kick it back to what you were just talking about, Tom Brady. Did you see the updates that came out?
About Tom?
Yeah.
No. What's
So
up with
he's
Tom?
obviously
He's
he's
not
working
playing
for.
again.
Oh, Tom's out. Tom's out. He's working for Fox, right?
Yeah.
They hit him with pretty heavy restrictions. Let me see if I can find his restrictions they announced today.
On like what he
Um,
can talk about or
where he can go.
Fox.
Fox, yes. Apparently, from what I had read, and if my memory serves me correct, Tom Brady has restrictions as to events that he can go into, and he can't because remember he tried becoming like a part of the Raiders.
Uh huh.
So he can't go into like he's like I guess what's the term I'm looking for? Like clubhouses, like he can't go into other teams' clubhouses. Like he's super limited. He can do the game casts, but he can't go into like media rooms and like everything like that and be privy
Oh,
to kind of the
this makes
information
sense.
because he's trying to buy.
Gotcha. Okay, I thought it was just because they were trying to be controlling, but essentially he would have access as a media member to behind the scenes
Right.
stuff. And if he's a part owner of a team, they don't want him to, say, spy on a team's practice or
Right. But
deflate
they
a
were like
football or, do
super
any
yeah, they
scandalous things that he's never done before.
yeah, they drilled pretty heavily down into where he could be. Basically, like you're still expected to be on the field talking about it, but you are not allowed, to be in the locker room. You're not allowed to be in these facilities, and they gave him a punch list of stay out. Which
Hmm,
is actually kind of cool though, because it does tell you that there is some work probably being done behind the scenes to legitimize his ownership and
interesting. That is pretty cool. It's pretty wild. Tom Brady, the most interesting man in the world. I still haven't watched the roast of Tom Brady. I saw it's on Netflix now. Maybe I'll give it a go. Did you watch it at all?
I started it, I heard a little bit about it, but no, it didn't really take off in my interest.
That's fair. Yeah, there are some
Um,
wild jokes made on there.
yeah,
Obviously, I saw the most wild ones on TikTok and whatnot, but
right, right.
nothing else. Well, coming out of the preseason, any concerns, any big things you see that you didn't see before the preseason?
Nick Chubb's not back yet. But we're
Okay.
still waiting on some news on that, so it's a little bit more concerning. Going through and looking, I mean, we're having arm soreness from Deshaun, so not super shocked by that, honestly. When you get guaranteed money, you lose some drive, I'm gonna imagine there. But other than that, I am very surprised that Drake May is sitting. Maybe shouldn't be, but being the third pick, I mean, Jacoby Brissett's a good player, so not knocking that. But I am surprised that the Drake May is sitting. I know that they had a rough year last year, and I know that Kraft is probably arguably just as competitive as Jerry Jones would have the perception of being. But just surprised me that news came out. So we'll see. I would say the other one on kind of my list, I know he's not necessarily a rookie, but he was definitely a lost name, Stenson Bennett. He is on the Rams roster there. So he played pretty well. He was also high up in the passing for the preseason. He was second there with the 2 for 5 that we were talking about earlier, TDs to
Okay.
picks. But I mean, he took a year off football. So, we'll see a little bit there, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see if what the Rams can do this year. Maybe he'll see the field a little bit. I know Stafford's he's still a pretty hell of a quarterback, but we'll see what kind of goes on there.
Yeah, I gotta disagree on the Patriots take. I think this is probably the best thing that could possibly happen for Drake May because the Patriots are awful. And it's not like it happens. You got to rebuild. You pay for that success, but I think if Drake May starts right away, he's Sam Darnold. I don't think he's Jamarcus Russell. So, not saying that, but I think when it's what is he going to gain out of you know starting this year? And maybe he will start towards the end of the year, but they're not going to win games. Their line sucks, so he's going to get beat up. His confidence is going to be as low as it's ever been. I just don't see it being good for him so he can sit and learn because he is pretty raw. We know the physical tools he has and the size and everything, and I think he's a smart kid, but, you know, it is well documented that his footwork was really sloppy coming out of college. Some of the consistency wasn't there, and so, I think just getting a little more time to develop, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing for him. But, uh I think we're just so used to quarterbacks starting right away now. So it is tough and it is weird when you see somebody that high sit, especially when they drafted another quarterback, Joe Milton, in the 6th round, I believe. It brings a lot of questions on what are the Patriots doing, but ultimately, I think this is a win for Drake May. I think this is the best thing that could happen for him.
I think it just surprises me on the organization choosing to do it, right? I mean, Mahomes sat when he was a rookie, but just knowing that they're in the middle of a dumpster fire, and I mean, I get it, maybe from a protection standpoint, a longevity standpoint, but I don't know, just to bring in somebody like a Jacoby Brissett is interesting. And now, I mean, you can go through and look at a team doing the opposite. Look at the Colts, right? They're going to start, oh, what do we
Anthony
think of this?
Richardson.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson, and yet they have Joe Flacco. Like, why are we not letting him sit out? We saw what Flacco did last year. I mean, I think he was, in the time that he was with the Browns, I think he was 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I mean, he can, he's a veteran leader out there that can prove that he can still play ball. But, two different approaches there. So we'll see. Obviously, Richardson's been in the league a little bit longer. He's not a rookie. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, Mahomes sat. So there's definitely different different plans for different people, different organizations, and how they want to handle it based off longevity and who they want to be out there. But we'll see. I don't know. It just surprised me. I kind of figured that they would run with it.
Yeah, I think the Patriots are they're not an organization that needs to put butts in seats, and I think ultimately, like, that's unfortunately what a lot of it comes down here to, is you have, some organizations that their attendance for the season is gonna live or die based on, if they put that rookie starting quarterback on the field, whereas the Patriots, I don't think they have that pressure, right? Like, obviously, Robert Kraft wants to win, but obviously, Robert Kraft has also watched Tom Brady come from being a 6th-round pick and sitting for a little bit to becoming Tom Brady, and so I think he's one of the few old school guys left, and I think Gerard Mayo's an old school guy. Concerns me, his style a little bit. I think Drake May is gonna have to overcome a little bit, but I think they understand the long-term goal versus, that instant gratification of starting him. And I think that's honestly the same reason JD McCarthy is going to be set up for success. Now, granted, he tore his meniscus, so he can't play this year, but I think sitting behind Sam Darnold was going to be great for his career. So
I don't know
yeah,
if sitting
it's an
behind Sam
interesting one.
Darnold's good for anyone's career.
Hey, I think John Lynch, the GM of the 49ers last year during training camp, said Sam Darnold is the best thrower of the football that he's ever seen. Like, the dude is physically talented. He's been in some crap situations. And I think there's some crazy stat. You can check me on this, but I believe he's been in the league for like 6 or 7 years, and he's still younger than most of the guys that have gotten drafted like the last 3 years.
Well, yeah, you know why that is, right?
Why?
COVID.
I mean, that's fair too. Yeah, he's okay. So he's not that young.
Players are out there freaking going on year 5.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I should say it's
Yeah,
COVID players that were 7 years.
he was drafted in 2018, and
Yep.
he's only 27 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, he's been through a lot, good and bad, mostly bad, and he's still technically probably right at the start of his peak. You see most quarterbacks, like, late 20s into their 30s is where they really start to get after it, so he's in a good situation in Minnesota. I don't think he's their long-term guy, but I think we could see him have some success, and it wouldn't be, out of the question.
Yeah.
But
Interesting to think about that. I mean,
it doesn't
obviously, if
matter.
Brady's
Do you
going,
know why it doesn't matter?
why?
Because the NFC North has a new daddy, and his name
Oh,
is Caleb Williams.
that's not gonna happen.
So it doesn't matter regardless. Jared Goff,
That's not gonna
don't
happen.
care. Jordan Love, don't care. JJ McCarthy, don't care. And I'm not even an actual Bears fan, but I'm gonna adopt him and I'm gonna ride the Caleb Williams bandwagon. And if you ever throw the horns down again on Hard Knocks, Caleb, we're gonna have some issues if you're watching this. Don't ever throw the horns down again. But we're riding with Caleb Williams.
It's your funeral.
I've had enough miserable sports years in my life. It's all good. I've
I
endured a
mean,
lot of bad years for a lot of bad teams.
Justin Fields hyped up until the Bears got their hands on him.
Yeah, he's doing real sweet in Pittsburgh too.
Well, yeah, it's because you know how hard it is to deal with trauma.
Yeah,
Did Bears ruined
I
him.
think he just got beat out by lover boy Russell Wilson.
Yeah, he did, but it's hard to come back from a hard situation like he had in Chicago. No support.
And I was on the Justin Fields bandwagon too, so I'll admit to that. I'm not going to say my takes are perfect. I never thought he was going to be like an all-star, but I thought he was going to do some good things in Chicago. One hill that I will die on for the rest of my life is I said Justin Herbert was going to be the best quarterback in that 2020 class, and I think he is. You can tell me Joe Burrow's better. He's been more successful, obviously, but I think Justin Herbert's the best quarterback out of that class still. Him
I
and
mean,
Jim Harbaugh
Burrow
going to
hasn't
get
had
after
enough.
it.
Burrow hasn't had enough consistent seasons. I mean, he's had more success in spurts, but he's not consistent. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, how do you have things shaken out in the NFL this year?
Not well. On the
Not
Cleveland
well
side
for
of
who?
things.
For what?
Cleveland.
What about the rest
My
of this
hopeful
godforsaken league?
my hopeful this year is the Bucks. I'm heavily tailing the Bucks on this year.
Okay. Who do you have in the Super Bowl?
Oh, I haven't looked that far ahead yet, buddy.
You don't have any futures or anything on the Super Bowl? You don't have any bets?
No, I got like season ones. Like I got the Browns going over 8.5. I want to say I got a couple other teams on theirs. I have like Deshaun having more than 5 rushing touchdowns in the year. More
Okay.
like individual kind of standards there. Super Bowl is kind of tricky. I will tell you that I think out of the AFC, it's going to be an AFC North team in there. So we'll see.
Okay.
But I I don't know. I'm up in the air because I have the Ravens winning the AFC North, which would tell me that's going to be the team that's going to be representing. But I think they're a dangerous team, so we'll see. We'll see how Baltimore comes out of this. I mean, we'll see. But
Yeah, I
bear
don't know.
down
I
on the
think
fact that Chicago doesn't make the playoffs.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. I think they're going to slip in as a wild card, but I mean, they're still maturity wise, right? They're still not there yet. They got a lot of really young, good pieces, both on the defensive and offensive side of the ball now. You look at, Jalen Johnson, Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze, you got Roshan Johnson in the draft last year. Kieran Amagaji is healthy now, so we'll see what he can do. You know, some really good pieces. The offensive line, I think, is underrated and is going to be a little better than people think. They got a lot of bodies. It'll be interesting to see if they can find the right bodies and the right combination. But I think Chicago could be a dark horse team. I'm not saying they're going to go to the conference championship or the Super Bowl. Like, what's my guy over there with the long hair, Nick Wright, on the old television, who said that they could win the Super Bowl this year? I think that's probably very extreme, but I really like them. I see them as kind of the Houston Texans of this year, and I don't know. I'm curious what Houston's going to do too. That'll be an interesting one. I don't know if you're on that bandwagon of they're going to keep on, keep it trucking, and CJ Stroud's going to set it on fire, or you think they have a little bit of a sophomore slump, or what do you see coming out of there?
No, I think he's gonna hit the ground running this year. I think they're gonna be a team to watch. The one thing that I thought was interesting, and I don't know, I had an assumption that every team had to do the same, but Houston and Chicago played 4 games in the offseason, which was weird, or in the preseason. I don't know. I don't know why they're the only two.
They played the Hall of Fame game. It doesn't count for a preseason
Got
week.
you. Okay, because I was
Yeah,
gonna say yeah, I thought that was a little weird. I mean, that game got kind of canceled anyway. They didn't play the full
yeah.
game, but that would make sense. I don't know. I would give you, I mean, kind of looking back and thinking about it for CJ. Yeah, I think I'll hit the ground running. But going back and looking at the Super Bowl predictions, we'll go with a Midwest showdown. Well, I know I
Okay.
said I got the Ravens. Like I said, I liked the Ravens, but that's to win the North. We could go Super Bowl. We could go Bengals Lions. Fight of the West.
Spicy.
The old Midwest right there.
We got Derek with another spicy take. I need the Lions to lose, and I need the Texans to win because I know I'm from Michigan, and I'm gonna get crap, and I always get crap. But like, nothing would make me happier than CJ Stroud winning 5 MVPs and 5 Super Bowls because I watched CJ Stroud have a Heisman season and play one bad game against Michigan. And then all the brilliant Detroit Lions fans were like, oh, this guy's a bum. He hates pressure, doesn't want to play football. Blah. This guy sucks. So I hope CJ Stroud haunts your nightmares for the rest of your godforsaken lives, Detroit. I You'll learn this about me, everyone that listens to this podcast. I despise most Michigan sports. For one, because it's fun, and two, because I grew up around a lot of fans that are just the worst. So yeah, I hope CJ Stroud haunts Detroit for the rest of their days.
And I'm not putting Detroit in the Super Bowl because I am a Lions fan by any means, but I'm putting them there because I'm drinking the Kool-Aid that they're going to be in a powerful seat in the NFC.
I like Dan Campbell, I really do, and I like Jared Goff. I think it's a good comeback story. So like,
I don't like Jared
part of
Goff.
me
I like
has
Dan. I'll give it.
almost rooted for them a couple times over the past year. Um, they're a fun team, but at the end of the day, not going to root for Detroit sports. Just not going to physically happen. So sorry
Yeah,
about it.
well,
Not sorry
that's
about it.
tough. Well, check your mail maybe tomorrow.
My mail?
Yeah, I just got your jersey.
What jersey?
It's Detroit sports, so you'll see.
I'll wear Aiden Hutchinson.
I wouldn't
That's
buy a
about
Lions
it.
jersey. I wouldn't buy a Lions jersey.
If it's a Pistons jersey, it's going straight in the garbage. Unless it's Grant Hill with the old cool piston on the front, the old like teal, turquoise, whatever you want to call
Maybe it
it.
was a Kane jersey.
I'd wear a Patrick Kane Detroit. I almost bought one because I have, you'll see on my wall back here, I have my Patrick Kane Rangers jersey. I had the Detroit jersey in my cart for 2 weeks on Fanatics. I couldn't do it. And I think the Detroit jersey is like super pretty. It's one of the best jerseys in sports, but I just could not spend the money and have a Detroit Red Wings jersey hanging in my closet. It just wasn't going to happen. So I love you, Kaner. I hope you win a cup, not with Detroit, but yeah, it can't be done.
How
It's
can
just
you
not going
call
to
it?
happen.
How can you call it love when you won't even support the guy? Won't even put a little money in his pocket.
Oh, I support him.
But
I
yet
hope
you
he has
bought
I hope
you
he has
bought
100 points.
a knockoff Williams jersey.
It's not a knockoff. That's a legit jersey.
What numbers Caleb Williams were?
That's because I ordered it custom from Nike before he got drafted.
Right, knockoff.
It's not knockoff.
After that sale,
I don't care.
Enjoy
The
your
money
knockoff.
says that was not a knockoff.
Enjoy your
My
knockoff.
my bank account says that was not a knockoff.
I could charge your bank account $500 for a white T-shirt, so it'd be a knockoff.
I wouldn't buy it. I'm not that stupid. I'm pretty stupid. All right. Well, we'll kick it on. We'll kick the can on down the road. Keep things moving here. A lot of good things coming in the NFL and the NCAA. We'll be covering that a lot this year. So super excited to keep that going. Also, a couple things that are super excited. Kind of wanted to talk through some of the live sporting events that Coffee and Cups will be going to over the next couple of weeks to hopefully get some live content, make some friends, make some fans, and do some cool things. So I'll talk about the first one. I'll let Derek talk about the second one, but we already alluded to it. We will be half of Coffee and Cups will be at the Texas versus Michigan game in Ann Arbor in 2 weeks. So going to be a really cool one there. Actually, it's really only 1 week at this point, but we'll be there getting some live content. We'll record a show from Michigan, all of us together. So that'll be really cool. And then we'll try to get some content from the game. And we'll have a special guest on that one. And then Derek, what are we doing in the next weekend?
Oh, they go back to back like that, huh?
Yeah, it's back to
I
back.
didn't realize that. Yeah, so on the 13th to the 15th, we have Live that's actually coming back to Chicago. However, this time it's at Bolingbrook Country Club, or golf course, actually. It's not even a country club, I don't believe. So different course for the guys this year. A little bit interesting, but it's honestly probably going to be a little bit more exciting than it was last year. So this is the last round prior to the championship on over in Miami for the team championship. And the Crushers and Legion is actually only a half a point apart. So we have 176 to 176 and a half.
So how does the championship work for Live, for those of us that don't follow it that much?
Yeah, so every single week for the teams, in order to get a team score, it goes off the player's score for the four of those players, what they're like shooting under, things like that. So, I shoot 2 under, you shoot 3 under, we're -5 for a team, right? So however that ranks in there, the first place team gets 32 points, then 24 points for second, then 16 for third, and so on down. But only the top 8 teams can actually get points. Individual shakes it up a little bit. The top 24 can get points for an individual standing for the season. But those points that you accumulate for your team's performance are what then goes through on over into your season points. So really you need to be in that top 8 to score points. But there's a pretty large deficit between the top 3. I mean, you go from 176 to then the group in third that's at 131. So the top 2 is just neck and neck, but I'll tell you the biggest difference there is Legion is hot. Crushers are not hot, as well as 2 of the top 3 players currently right now in Live are Legion players. So just individually they're performing better. So we'll see. It'll be interesting on over in Bolingbrook there, but pretty excited. For those of you that don't know, John Rahm, who's new to Live, is Legion's captain.
So do all the teams play in Miami, or is it just the 2, like the final teams?
All teams will play in Miami.
And then is there a separate individual championship or only the team championship?
There's a separate individual championship, I do believe. I would have to look. I want to say that there is. I thought last year there was. Let me pull up their schedule, though, really fast. Nope, it's just going to go into the team. So they must do the individual with that. Because the team is the following weekend after that in Miami.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've never been to a live golf event. I know that you've been to a couple, so
Yeah.
It'll be a new one for me. What's your strategy? Do you like to sit at a hole, or do you like to follow a group around, or what's the game plan?
I've done a few. Last time I went to live, I followed Brooks for a while, and then we posted up on a par three that's had the most or the highest greens in regulation, so we
Okay.
could increase our chances of possibly seeing a hole in one.
Fair.
But it's pretty easy. I mean, they kind of show you where the players are and what holes are expected to be. So easiest thing to do is kind of find a couple holes that run back to back next to each other, and you can just kind of bounce around a little bit. But I don't know. It's a little bit different environment probably where it's going to be at Bolingbrook versus where it's been in other places because it's going to be tight. It's going to be a really tight course compared to what I've been to in the past.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to go and excited to get some content there. One other thing, I know we talked about it at the start, just some interviews that we have coming up planned. So don't want to give away any names yet. Still trying to make sure everything's squared away there, but want to
Brooks
tease a
Koepka.
couple. What's up?
We got Brooks Koepka lined up.
Brooks Koepka's coming on the podcast.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Oh, gotcha. You heard that here first. Derek is killing it with the breaking news today. He's predicting Super Bowls. He's predicting the Sanders family to Dallas, and now he's predicting Brooks Koepka on the podcast. So, Brooks, if you're listening to this, which I know you're
I'm sure
not,
we could get some video footage of him in Chicago. I'm sure he won't
all
talk
right,
to us though. But
that's fair. We can work around that. We can figure it out. Yeah. So, upcoming interviews. So, some cool things. We got some current and former professional hockey players here, both on the men's and women's side that we're hoping to bring on. One current coach for a G League team, a couple of baseball and basketball players, both current and former professionals. So, uh, again, without going into details on names and timing and whatnot, some really cool things there. I don't know, Derek, you have anything you're specifically looking forward to or, learning about through these interviews?
yeah, I think I mean, as you continue to grow and things like that into sports, I mean, organizational structure is kind of interesting. Just kind of seeing, I don't know, I mean, the different ways. Like, I've had, a cousin that was a professional hockey player for a while and just kind of learning just travel regiment and the way that they try and get everything done. I don't know, just all the way down, just kind of the lifestyles is interesting when I wouldn't say like, I don't know, I guess like G League, we could use that for example, the way that what they have and the way that they go about things. So kind of tough to say or I guess put into words, but it's just an interesting lifestyle. It's one that isn't really obviously glorified or things like that, but it's still like you get to do what you love every single day. And it's a dream for a large percentage of the world to be able to do something like that.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that kind of wraps it up for some of the upcoming content. But before we kick it on to our last few segments, some of the staples of the Coffee and Cups podcast, just want to send a reminder that we are a proud partner with Synergy Coffee Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, black coffee is back. I know it's 2024 and we're all obsessed with our lattes, oat milks, and pumpkin spice, but rest assured there is something out there that is a lot easier on your taste buds, stomach, and most importantly, your wallet. This show is a proud partner with Synergy Coffee Chicago, an up and coming company right here in my backyard. Synergy is proud to produce small batch coffees from all around the world, infusing them with unique flavors and roasting them fresh every week. I personally am hooked on the Dark Knight, which is sourced from Mexico. It boasts a rich flavor with notes of cinnamon, abuelita, and vanilla, and it always hits the spot. I brew it up in my Chemex every weekend when I'm home, and I sip on it all day long. Go ahead and check out synergycoffee.com for more information on the ground and whole bean blends that Synergy has to offer. All right, we are back, and this is our first signature segment. We introduced it on our Instagram yesterday, or sorry, this is the future, earlier this week. So make sure you go check that out. And this is the Bush League Play of the Week. Derek Martin will kick it off. Just to note that this is in no way, shape, or form associated with Bush Light or Anheuser-Busch, but damn, I could use a cold, tasty beverage right now. So wish it was. Bush, if you want to sponsor us, you don't have my number, but you can find it. Take it away, Derek.
I don't know if they'll find it. So yeah, I just actually learned a little bit more about myself with this week's clip. I learned that my neighbors actually can record me in my backyard. So this clip is probably actually just brought from my backyard. I know I said earlier that I really don't focus a whole lot on the chipping game. We're looking at the long game here, but everything counts, especially when you get closer to the green. So, since I've seen this, I'll turn the clip over to you so you can kind of watch it. I know it's been posted earlier this week. on our socials, so you guys should have been able to see that. If not, it's more than likely in the linked stories there at the top of the page for Bush League highlights.
Yeah, so talk me through it, man. Give me the play-by-play on this one. I know I'm watching it right now.
All right, so we got our guy here. He's obviously focused on being able to, I would assume he's focused on trying to cork his body and then release there. But as he's doing it, he's really heavily focused on going through and getting through the ball from the ground and exploding up, which is a interesting way to try and compress a ball because that's not necessarily how you're going to get compression out of it. And he comes through and hits it somewhat flush, it looks like, and he gets pretty excited about it. But everyone has their unique ways of trying to line things up and how they want their hands to follow through. But he's definitely breaking it down a little bit more than some of us would like to admit that we do in our backyard, because I know we all definitely do it on the golf side of things. Because golfers, I mean, from seeing things like Micah Morris in the middle of the airport terminal videos getting leaked while he's practicing, I mean, they're always trying to line up their hands and their release points and when they're breaking. So who knows?
Yeah, so it from another terrible golfer that gets really handsy with the ball, that's what I thought he was doing, is, like, trying to keep his hands back and create that whip through the ball, not having, like, the early extension, but, I mean, this is the definition of beer league, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we're out here, we're not in the gyms with, like, expensive equipment, we're sitting here in our driveway at 11 p.m. at night doing some wild ass drills on a 4x3 carpet. And yeah, like you said, it looks like he gets, he hits a pretty flush shot, but I can't tell if he's happy or excited, but he does yell some, maybe a thing that is not appropriate for all audiences afterwards. So not really sure, but I don't know. How would you rate that swing? Because the swing's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, the swing's not bad. It's definitely not a. It has nothing to do with what he did prior. It really doesn't. Maybe his hands, but the whole trying to just compress his whole body down. I mean, the backside of him, yes, you're gonna want to pull it, but I don't understand the whole technique of squatting. So who really knows that? I think honestly the best way to chalk this up is this is a compilation of watching way too many YouTube videos on swings, and this is exactly why I don't.
Yeah.
Now, I have a little bit of a cheater in that aspect because I have a cousin that is a golf coach. So I can send him videos, and I'm guilty of being at a range for half an hour to an hour, sending him just videos and reading texts and tweaking there. But yeah, he's definitely interesting there. I mean, on his full swing, I mean, it's probably cleaner than mine, honestly. I'd maybe give him a good 8 maybe out of that. I mean, I would say it's pretty flush in there. He's definitely slower in his backswing than I am, which is good because he has control.
Yeah. My favorite thing about looking through any Bush League highlights is the comment section, and obviously I expected this kid to get absolutely buried, but most of the comments are like talking shit about the cameraman and how actually defending the guy golfing and saying, "Hey, like this is a pretty good hands drill," or "Hey, look at this guy practicing while you're sitting on your couch scrolling." So it's actually kind of funny to see people actually defending the guy. And yeah, like you said, and like I'm seeing with my own two eyes, dude's got a pretty clean swing. Don't know how much value that specific drill is adding to his swing, but everyone's got their own quirks, man. So I can't hate on him too much, but definitely an interesting highlight for the week.
I would say my last two comments on it is one, where'd the ball go? It looks like he's maybe in an urban city. I mean, definitely in a city, maybe not in the U.S. So more than likely, probably in a tight area. I don't know where that ball's going. And
No, he's
the
got a
second
net.
one, oh yeah, I guess that is a net in front of him. Yeah, I guess I didn't even see that. I just
And it
anticipated that
looks
was like
like it
another
moves. So
building.
it could have gone under or something, but it looks like it moves, like the ball went where it's supposed to.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of net fails too, but yeah. So I guess that I took that as a building, like a garage that he was maybe hitting towards. But yeah, the net would make sense. And the last one I would say on this one that I love is the comment. If you scroll pretty far down, you'll see a comment in there that says, about the action, he'll break 80 this year. So if he's breaking 80 doing that, I mean, you'll definitely see me in my driveway doing that. So we'll see. I'll have to
I'll
wait and see
make
how
sure
he's
your
doing.
sister or somebody records it.
Yeah. You want to go into the what are we doing? Because actually we haven't done your hot take. We've covered my hot takes.
Oh, we have no hot takes haven't even started yet. Now you wasted hot takes on not hot takes, so
I
you can
mean,
reuse them if you
I
want.
I have my hot takes. Mainly, I mean, I haven't fully developed one on Caleb Williams yet. I stats it. My original hot take is obviously going to be that the QBR for Justin Fields' rookie year was going to be better than Caleb Williams, but he was low 30s, so I can't imagine that's going to happen. But I don't know what it'll take to put me on a Caleb Williams train, but I am not a Caleb Williams fan, and it mainly stems from his contract negotiations and everything he did from skipping the combine on. It's just he's not orthodox, and it's very weird in a league that is heavily built on orthodox. I can't imagine he's an owner's friend, so I don't know. We'll see.
Fair.
I will develop one around him for the full season. I just haven't decided where it's going to be yet, especially with looking at college. I think it was like 93 touchdowns for maybe less than 20 interceptions. So we'll see how he adjusts in the NFL, but more than likely it's going to be around that stat line there. But he's reading defenses pretty well right now, so we'll see.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll go on over to our "What Are We Doing" segment. So yeah, we got "What Are You Doing?" or "What Are We Doing?" I don't know. We don't know what we're doing, but "What Are We Doing" is a segment where one of us essentially does a blind activity or something of that nature for the other person. So could be trivia, could be a punishment, could be a quiz, could be really anything. And so this week I'm going to take it first. And so, Derek, we are going to do a blind ranking for your "What Are We Doing" today. So here's the parameters. There have been 39 major championship winners on the PGA Tour since 2010. I'm going to give you 6 random ones, and I didn't pick them. I made a randomizer do them. And I'm going to ask you to blind rank these 6 major winners of the last 15 years.
Based off of how many major wins they've had, or based off of
No, based on how good of a golfer you think they are, right? So like I'm gonna give you the first random one. You're gonna put them somewhere in that lineup of 1 to 6, and then we'll see if you create a good ranking or if your ranking sucks. So you could get the top 5 players in the world in here. You could get the worst 5 players of those 39 major winners. You don't know who you're gonna get.
Okay.
All right. First up, hopefully you know all these guys. Ernie Els.
When was Ernie Els last time on the tour?
Probably about the time he won a major, which I believe was 2012 was the last time he won a major.
That's tough because I mean we're going all time at this point. We're not going current.
Yeah,
So
it's just anybody that's won a major since 2010.
5.
5. Okay. Number 2 is going to be Sergio Garcia.
3.
3. Okay. Third, Justin Thomas.
He's controversial, but he's got to go 2.
Oh, you got a lot of big dogs left. You got a lot of big dog left. All right. So we got 3 people left. We have the 1, 4, and 6 slots still open.
I know JT should have probably gone 3. Sergio should have gone 4, but we'll keep going.
Number 4, Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, he should have gone 2. But I don't know if you have Tiger in there because you picked random. So we'll say
No, all 39 of the golfers are in there. Yeah, you don't know if he's in the final group, but yeah, all of them are in there.
right. I'll put Rory 1. I can't not put Rory 1, so I have 4 and 6 available.
All right. Number 5, Shane Lowry.
Yeah, I'm fine with putting him at 6.
Okay. Number 6 in the 4th overall spot, Colin Morikawa.
Yep, fine with that.
So Derek's ranking is Rory 1st, Justin Thomas 2nd, Sergio Garcia 3rd, Colin Morikawa 4th, Ernie Els 5th, and Shane Lowry 6th. Let him know somewhere how good, how bad he did. I don't think it was bad. I think it's a tough one starting with Sergio and Ernie Els, because it's just like, what else am I getting?
We'll throw Wednesday, we'll throw an open question and we'll put it on the Instagram stories and we'll see where it ranked amongst you guys that know the 6.
We can do that. And that wraps it up for our first ever segment of What Are We Doing? Which also leads us to the end of our first show, very long show, which will be Hot Takes with Chris and Derek. So, Derek, what do you got for us?
So I'll give you a semi-lengthy one, and I say lengthy as in it's not going to take place in the first week, but I know we spoke about the Colts earlier than that. I have them going 0-4 in the beginning of the year, and They have a tough schedule in the beginning of the year. I want to say week 5, if I'm not mistaken here. Let me double check this. Week 5 is their switch over because they're going to go Texans, Packers, Bears, Steelers, and then they play the Jags. And I think we see Joe Flacco as a starter against the Jags.
Because Anthony Richardson is benched or hurt or what?
Benched.
Interesting. What about Sam Ellinger if you're going to bench him?
I think they put a veteran in that has experience over Sam.
All right. So you think Derek's hot take is 5 games into the season, Anthony Richardson will get benched. And if you take a look on our social media, we're going to do our hot takes on a sliding scale based on the length of time it takes for that to come to fruition or not, and the chance that it happens. So that one's going to be in the 9 point range. I think we can adjust that. I'll put it in the 9 point range, which means it is longer than 1 month, but less than one full season, and a 10 to 25% chance of it happening. I think honestly, it might be even less than that, but I think that's it's probably a solid 9 pointer, which I think my points potential on my hot take is going to be a little higher. But again, it's also because it's a little less likely. So a lot of people are going to call me a hometowner for this, even though I'm from Michigan and I'm have a hot take against the Detroit Red Wings. But my hot take is that the Chicago Blackhawks will finish ahead of the Detroit Red Wings this season. And let me be
I
very
don't.
clear on that. I- I'm not saying that Chicago is going to beat Detroit head to head. They could split, they could go 0-2. I am strictly saying points in the standings at the end of the season.
I
And
don't.
here's why. I think I don't think Detroit progresses much from last year. I think Chicago progresses quite a bit. And I also think that the Eastern Conference is an absolute murderer's row, where I don't think the Western Conference is that. So I think you'll see Detroit settle back a little bit points wise from where they were last year, and you're going to see Chicago take a pretty large jump. You got Connor Bedard in his a full season, added that maturity. You bring back Tevu, who's a 60-point scorer. You bring in Tyler Bertuzzi, who's a potential 60-point scorer, and he can rough things up a little bit. Taylor Hall's coming back healthy, so you have some scoring there in the top 6. Philip Kurashev's there. You got some young guys coming in. And then you have a pretty damn good goalie tandem, right? So Peter Mrazek is a lower third goalie, but Laurent Brossoit is a fantastic backup goalie. So I think they make a pretty big jump and are a pretty competitive team this year. And I don't see it as much from Detroit, right? You bring in Tarasenko, you bring back Kane, but I think Kane's a difference maker. I don't think Tarasenko is at this point. I think the goalie situation is pretty garbage in Detroit. You have Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon, who Cam Talbot is pretty sure went to high school with my dad. And then Alex Lyon, I think, has some potential, but I don't think he's proved himself as anything yet besides that little run he had with the Panthers. And so I think Detroit's probably a better team still. I'm not going to argue that, right? I still think Chicago's a longer shot, but I think the Eastern Conference is tougher. And I think just actualizing the point totals, I think you see Chicago catch up to Detroit. Detroit finished last season with 91 points. Chicago finished with a whopping 52. So this is a very tall task, but I think they meet probably close to Detroit's point total. And I think you see Chicago up around that 80 to 85 points. And then you'll see Detroit fall down, to that 80 to 85 points. So I think it's a close one. Probably not going to happen, but I'm taking a swing for the fences with my first hot take of the year.
What Detroit team do you think comes out of the gate? Do you think we see the same early Detroit team we saw last year, or do we see the end of the year Detroit team?
It's tough to say because they do have the young guns. They're a hungry team. I think honestly, for the first time in his tenure there, Yzerman's under some pressure. So I'm gonna say they start slow. Honestly, I think they come out gripping the stick a little bit too tight. Finding some chemistry. I know they do have a lot of guys back, but yeah, I think maybe we're thinking a little too much, and we come out a little slow. So we'll see. Still think they're gonna be a good team and around the hunt for the playoffs, but I just don't see them, climbing the ladder any more than they did last year.
That's fair.
So yeah, that's my hot take. I'm sticking to it. And I'll have to wait for 8 months to either get or not get my 15 points here. So stay tuned. I'm going to be behind for a long time, and I'm going to make a dramatic comeback in the 11th hour in April 2025. Mark it on your calendars. April 2025. I'll win that. And then the next week, Shitter Sanders and Deion Sanders will both be Dallas Cowboys. Take it to
I
the
would agree.
bank. Just want to thank everybody for coming out to our first show. Like we said, we'll get better at this. Bear with us. We want to hear your feedback. We want to provide joy, provide insight, and just provide an all-around great experience for everybody that chooses to hang with us. With that being said, I'll let Derek close it out.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for tuning in here. I think one of the things, I know we talked about the whys earlier, but we obviously disclosed a little bit more of kind of what we want on the guest standpoint, and kind of listener interaction is one of the things that we want to try and definitely focus on. That's why we started the Fantasy Football League. So don't be shocked if we try and get a little bit more interactive with some of you guys as we get to know you, and potentially bring you on for little segments and things like that for your insight, because we want to, aside from our thoughts and opinions, we want to know kind of what you guys like, what you follow, and hear your takes as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Tune in next Sunday for another show and a cup of Joe.